So there are lots of interesting things that come to us with ZFS. And of course, the other one, which is still a matter of big debate, is that it's an SSD enabler. And I suppose one of the things, just take a look at the DDR drive stand over there, if you're not aware of the debate. One of the sad things about this session is we did clash with the SSD panel, but you do need to be aware of issues around performance and reliability and so on, and I'm sure they'd love to tell you more. I'm saying all this because I'm going to knock them in a minute. Okay. What are the challenges of ZFS that I see? Well, a cluster needs a shared SSD if it's going to have any SSDs. So at the moment, although I very much like the DDR drive, when I talk about high availability, it has no place today in an HA cluster. I know we're in discussions, we've talked about our needs, and I'm sure that is something that will change. But one of the key things is to note that your SSDs will need to be in your shared storage array somewhere, which limits the choice of storage array. That's if you're using an SSD as a ZIL. It's also if you're using an SSD as an L2 ARC. And that brings me on to this point down here. Yeah.
What about the SAS SSDs from OCZ and Stack?
Sorry?
What about the SAS SSDs from Stack from OCZ?
Yeah, SAS SSDs are good, but again, they have to be in the shared. But you can't have it installed in the node head because it has to be accessible to the other node in the event of a failover. Yeah?
So it has to be in the shared.
It has to be in the shared storage. Any other ways I should say that? Did everyone get that now? Okay, so talking about RAID Z, I am at the moment very concerned that we haven't got light at the end of the tunnel on RAID Z resilver performance. And this is an OpenStorage Summit, and so I'm saying that openly here. I think in an HA cluster today, I would not use RAID Z in any form.
So you recommend mirror? You recommend using
mirror? I would recommend a mirror every time. Which means that for some of you, you will want to use a three-way mirror, which means that good, cheap and fast, and you can pick any two.
MLC factory. MLC factory.
Well, they can back it, and they can read the ZFS discussing interest list as well. But I'm saying I don't care who advises it at the moment. If it has an unbound resilver time, I'm not interested.
SSD.
Yeah. Right. Yes, but then if we're talking about SSDs, we're talking about low volumes, or we're talking of, yeah, I'm talking of petabytes. So again, it's good, cheap, fast, and yes, you can fill your machine room with SSDs.
So you mean that the RAID Z can do like timeouts from disk?
No, I'm just saying that at the moment, if you have quite an active workload on your pool, you will notice, and it has been noticed, that the resilvering actually, a 1 terabyte drive, it's already resilvered 2 terabytes of data because of the copy on write. It's a temporal resilvering, and because of the copy on write, it actually never finishes.
Terabyte drive will probably take 16 hours of an active clock in RAID Z.
On a good day. Okay, let's move on. Unexpected impact of snapshots and clones. This is there again have been some stories of the times to do fairly basic commands stretch unacceptably because you took the promise that they were unlimited and free. So all I'm doing here is saying I'm pleading for a little bit of common sense, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm not saying don't use snapshots and clones, but use them within reason. Dedupe is definitely a work in progress. I think it has no place in an HA cluster today. Can I repeat that? Dedupe is definitely a work in progress, and it has no place in an HA cluster today. Because of the amount of time it takes to do an import, the amount of time it takes to do certain operations, actually, to do with deleting data sets and so on. And again, on the ZFS list, we've seen cases where people have waited days for operations to complete. And until those issues are resolved, until we've got some good best practices, fantastic practices. We just can't take 6 days to do stuff. There are also some important missing features. Persistent L2 arc was something we were promised probably about 3 years ago, and it was 6 months away 3 years ago. We still don't have it. If you need the performance that an L2 arc gives you, then the fact that you lose the cache every time you reboot or do a failover means that it is of no interest to you. Because it means that when you fail over, you will not have that level of performance because you have to warm the cache up again. It is actually quite a difficult thing to do. I think it was promised without realizing how difficult it was to do. All right. So persistent L2 arc is an issue. I've also seen companies configure L2 arc in the head node. That isn't as broken as putting the ZIL in the head node, but it does mean that you will get errors and warnings when you do the failover, because obviously it can't find the L2 arc that you've configured to the pool. Some of this is just religion. Things like VDEV removal and mirror split are actually quite important features to people in a high available environment. Also, just anything, any command I can do where I can, I mean, I once did this. I'm a human too. I tried to add a cache device to a pool, an L2 arc, and I did it from the command line, and I missed out the word cache. So it mirrored my 2 SSDs and added them to the pool. And there is no way to undo that. I could find some new disks, but I'd used all the disks in the array already, so I couldn't replace the SSDs with... And the fact of the matter is that very soon after you've made that mistake, there's no data on those disks anyway. It's just a configuration error. I should be able to undo that. But I should be able to remove a VDEV from the pool anyway. Something that people have asked for the last 5+ years, and I suppose there's also these commands which are catastrophic if you have a typo, where there is no confirmation. You are being incredibly stupid, do you want to do this, sort of yes or no. And this is where NMC and NMV are going to save a lot of people, because it's a lot more obvious what you're doing. And at 3 o'clock in the morning you forget the word cache, and then you've said goodbye to any sleep you were going to have that night, because you have to rebuild the whole thing before people come in at 9 o'clock in the morning. What I would like also is read-only support and some form of immutable, or at least temporarily immutable, snapshots, so that I could mount and import a pool into a second machine as read-only, truly read-only. I think if we could mark a snapshot as immutable in some way, at least for the duration of this import, that would be really cool, because I could then back up a snapshot on another node, knowing that, of course, that the primary node, the guy that's got it read-write is not going to modify or delete that snapshot. And of course, that would just be a cool feature to have. And it would mean, in terms of high availability, I could do the backup without any real impact on the on the primary node that's providing the service. I could do the backup without it even knowing it was happening. Does RSF support replication instead of mirroring?
For instance, we do not
So the discussion here is really around, can we use something other than just the straight mirroring for replication like auto CDP, and could we actually bring that back into the cluster or manage it, fail over to that? And the answer is we can't do that today. We were going to discuss about the difference between HA and DR, and they are very different things. DR is what you do when your HA hasn't saved you. So quite often, all the nasty things I've said about RAID Z3, I'd quite like to see configurations where your primary service is provided by a highly available cluster where you're using mirroring, and perhaps your DR is to do with a replication, auto-sync over to a system that uses RAID Z3 and doesn't provide the same level of performance. That would seem quite a good sort of compromise. I think it is about not one size fits all, and not assuming that, I'd be very anxious if people were just doing the campus cluster or the urban cluster type thing as their only strategy. Well, I think we've come pretty much to the end. I've got one more slide. And this is from the 1980s, from the South Atlantic. It's a Seawolf missile. Its job is to shoot down other aircraft that are threatening this ship, or even to try and shoot down the Exocet missile. And it's notorious for a number of software failures, and you can see a number of issues with this. There's only one missile being shot. There should be at least two being shot at the incoming target. One of the software failures that they had was that it was initially designed to be ground-launched and had no concept of being able to aim at anything below 0 degrees, like a missile coming into a ship. So the software couldn't actually aim the thing down. It could only aim it up. But the point is that if you have these vulnerabilities in your system, they will eventually bite you, and the time that they will bite you will be the time that matters the most. So please go away with that ringing in your ears. Design your systems to fail, and remember that it can be cheap, it can be fast, and it can be good, but it can only be two of those at any one time. Thanks very much.